right, everybody, welcome. I'm Charles E. Smith Jr., and this is an Inside Sports production of Dodger Dogs. We take a look at Major League Baseball with a focus on our hometown, well, if you live where I do, our hometown team, the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, I cannot do this show alone, so, of course, here at Inside Sports, we only bring you the best. I only work with the best and the finest, and the foremost authorities in sports get on my show. If you can't bring it, you do not wind up on Inside Sports. So, of course, I have enlisted the help of none other than Mike Gabriel of MikedUpRadio.com. You can follow him on Twitter at MikedUpRadio.com. And so without further ado, here he comes, the man, a big-time Southern California sports fan, and especially a lover of the Los Angeles Dodgers, Mike Gabriel. Mike, what's up, man?
Wow, man, are you going to ask me out on a date next, or what?
I'm sorry if I left you slightly aroused.
I'm doing horrible, Charles. How are you, man?
Well, you know what? It's a tough time to be a Dodger fan, and we've been, well, not really tough. The best part is we look at the ups and downs and everything with what's going on with the Dodgers, and I guess you could say, you know what? They're still in contention. They haven't played themselves out of anything. We look at all the moves, the trade deadline. I mean, they get Hanley Ramirez to go along with Matt Kemp, get him off of injury. Then they get Hanley Ramirez. Then they pick up Shane Victorino. All looks well, but we look at it again. They're still, 500 team, 5-5 in their last 10, 3-3 in their last 6, and deadlocked with the Giants, separated by a game and a half or so.
Make a lot of good points, and when you play bad teams like like the Rockies, and you get beat by your brains against the Arizona Diamondbacks, and you're coming off big wins with San Francisco, you sweep the Cubs, and you're about to get swept by the Rockies, you get swept by the Diamondbacks. So you know what I decided to do? I decided today not to do this show in my studio like I usually do, or nice, peace, and quiet. You know what I did today is I'm actually out in my backyard right now, and I'm looking at the pool, and it's a beautiful summer day. You know why I deserve this, Charles, is because I was one of the 50,000 fans that sat through that miserable game last night to watch a minor league team go up against a semi-pro team, and that semi-pro team once again losing to another minor league team. So I deserve everything that I'm doing right now. I can't describe to you how much fun it is to be a Dodger fan and go to a game and get a Sandy Koufax bobblehead, and for them to get shut out one night, and the next night they basically get blanked. Thanks to Markello's pinch hit double, they score a run, and everybody gets excited. Like it's New Year's Eve. I mean, this stuff you just can't make up. You can't make this up. You are. This is probably the most pathetic I can remember a Dodger team, only because there is so much talent. They are loaded with so much talent now, with a good leadoff hitter, with a guy you can put in the middle of the order in Hanley Ramirez. You got two guys around him like Matt Kemp and Andre Ethier. Not one big player on this team can get a big hit. And you're going up against guys who've had 6+ ERAs coming in, and you can't even get hit, let alone run. I can't remember a team that's been so loaded, but at the same time so pathetic.
Well, let me just ask you this about the Dodgers, and it kind of reminds me of another era. If you remember when Fox first bought the Dodgers, and back in the late 90s, whenever that fiasco happened, when they just seemed to be adding players, when they got Todd Hundley for no reason, when they picked up Devon White, when they were just picking up guys, and you kind of thought, well, they're just picking up players, but nothing was really happening with the team. Now, this one isn't exactly the same situation, but maybe does it give you that same kind of a feel with this Dodger squad?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
I mean, they got talented players. Shane Victorino is a winner. Hanley Ramirez a couple of years ago was a top 5 player in the league. I mean, they went out and made some ballsy decisions. They throw on a lot of excess cash onto their payroll. I mean, because they want to win. I am not blaming a single thing on this front office at all. The front office has flat out went out and got help for this club and got help for Don Mattingly to win games. And they are getting shut out by bad teams. They're scoring 1 run, 2 runs against horrible teams. You beat San Francisco when you're on that road trip that we talked about that was so important. You go in there into San Francisco, you're down 3 games in the middle of the, with 2 months left in the season, a humongous series. What do? They win all 3 games. They sweep the Giants. You're coming home on the biggest high of the season. That is the biggest series. That was 3 of the largest victories they've had all season long. They play an Arizona team that wasn't playing well at all. Arizona comes into Dodger Stadium and sweeps them 3 games. Then the Cubs come in town. You figure the Cubs you take care of. That's exactly what they did. They took advantage of a bad club. The Dodgers sweep them. Now you're playing the worst team in your division, a team who is 18 games out of first place. A team is 100 games below 500. A team that has no chance of going anywhere. A team that has nothing but minor leaguers. A team who doesn't have Troy Tulowitzki. A team that doesn't have Todd Helton. This is a minor league team. The Colorado Rockies are a minor league team that they are fielding out there against a Major League Baseball team, the Dodgers, who talent-wise is fantastic. And what do? They're 1 game away from getting swept against the Rockies. So, look, this is a team that you talked about last week or a couple of weeks ago when you said, what are they? What's their destiny? What kind of team? What do we have here? It's basically, like you said, they're a 500 team is the way they're playing. They're up and down. You have no idea what to expect. This is a time when they should be taking advantage of their schedule, and they're not. They win 3 against the Cubs, and they about to lose 3 against a horrible Colorado Rockies team. So up and down, I have no idea what they're going to do anymore. You just can't. And a team like this isn't set. They're not ready to win the big thing. Playing like this, there's no way.
Well, let me just ask you this, okay? And you mentioned it briefly, but at some point, you got to look at who's motivating the team, getting them to play the way they do. You got to look at preparation. You got to look at focus. So, at what point do you start to look at the skipper? What about Don Mattingly, and the job that he's doing? Is he, let's talk about the skip for a moment.
Every player on that team would take a bullet for Don Mattingly. They would stand in front of a train for this guy. There's no doubt about it. I never put the blame. I would never do that to Don because Mattingly is fantastic. I love Don. He is a fantastic manager. He really is. And that's the number one thing that usually happens is when a team is underperforming, they look at the manager, they look at the coach, and sure they could, but it's not that. It's just guys just purely underperforming. They're just not there yet, and it could be the focus. It could be guys who just look. The way I look at things is the front office came in to help these guys out, and any other team, in my opinion, if you're the Philadelphia Phillies, if you're the Yankees, the Red Sox, any other team would go in and look at this thing like, wait a second. The front office now is bringing in these big-time players. They want to win. So we got to come in and make sure we help those guys come in and play off of them. This Dodgers team might have that loser mentality. Matt Kemp is, quote-unquote, the captain of the team. He should be carrying this team. He's the guy who should be getting big hits. 2 innings in a row the other night, he had first and second with nobody out. Hey, he strikes up and pops up. Nobody advances to third base. Terrible at bat. Matt Kemp can't afford to do that to this team. So, it could be where the Dodger players on this existing roster pre-acquisition looked at this thing like, cool. Shane Victorino's coming in. Cool, Hanley Ramirez is coming. I don't have to be the all-star anymore.
Right.
I don't have to be Matt Kemp. I don't have to be Andre Ethier. These guys can now get the big hit. I don't need to get the big hit. So, if that's the case, that's really unfortunate because it's going to be this way for a very long time. If they're going to have that loser mentality, it's going to be like this for a long time. It's really an unfortunate situation if that's what's going on. And so far, that's what's going on.
Well, do you think that is it a case of maybe you don't need necessarily a star player, but somebody in there has to just, if it's not the manager, and I know it's easy, I always say it's easier to replace one guy than it is to replace a whole team, and that's why a lot of managers and coaches get fired in sports. But, and I'm not calling for Don Mattingly's head or anything like that. Let's not get things twisted here. But it sounds like you're talking about a focus and a motivation thing. So where's that going to come from? If you got a crystal ball.
And it's a great question because this team right now, who knows what they do with Shane Victorino, he's a free agent, but right now this team is pretty intact for the next at least 2 years, right? You figure Loney doesn't come back next season, so you fill in a first baseman somewhere. But to make your point clear, and you make a good, valid point, who is the leader on this team? Who's the guy who's going to be in the clubhouse and stand up and say, hey, let's go. Enough is enough. Let's go. Instead of pouting to the media, instead of kind of sitting around your locker and putting your head down, get these guys together, get your group together, and let's go. Enough is enough. So, I'm not sure this team has one. I really don't think they do. You look at any other team, and you kind of figure they've got that guy or a manager who can do that. Don Mattingly is a guy who doesn't raise his voice. He's more of a guy who, you won't have team meetings. He won't single one player out. In batting practice, he'll go up to a player, and he'll let them know what he didn't like the night before or if he wants to talk to him. He won't throw guys under the bus. So, he's not the big rah-rah type guy, but he's a player coach. He's a player-type manager. Players love him. But, you make a good point. I'm not sure this team has a guy who would step up and say, let's go. Enough is enough. Call these guys out.
Well, I've heard.
So, and like I said, in two, this team in the next 2 years is going to be this way. It's going to be intact. So, that's a good question.
Well, hopefully it's just some growing pains, let's just say, because, Matt Kemp, now I've heard him, I've looked at his background, looked at where he came from. I've heard him in interviews, and he seems like a good guy who wants to be good and wants to be a great player. And you would think that that's where the leadership is going to come from. But is it one of those talk is cheap type of things? Because when you have a player as good and as talented as Kemp, he is naturally supposed to be the leader of the team also. That doesn't always happen that way. But, is he the one who really needs to step up and just take control? And it's like, this is my team, and we're going to go. I'm going to ride or die with this roster right here. This is my squad, and I'm the accountable one.
Totally agree. I totally agree. And he should be that guy. And I don't think he is. I don't think he's that guy who can go to his next clubhouse or to the next guy in his locker room and say, hey, man, let's go, man. It's, I saw what you did out there, so-and-so. You should do this maybe next time. Let's try to fix this stuff. But, in any case, we need to be here. We need to win. And I mentioned this earlier, man. Matt Kemp is the guy who should be getting that big hit. And he's had numerous times in the series. And, this is baseball. You're going to go through some slumps, but they're not productive at bat. He's done in 4 or 5 pitches. He's not hitting it to the right side to get a guy over. He's not, no sack fly. He's not getting a big hit.
Right.
With this talent, with this roster, he's got guys who can get big hits. And guys are getting in front, who are in front of Hanley and Matt and Andre. They're getting on base. These guys simply just aren't bringing them in.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, man. This baseball thing is a frustrating game when things aren't going your way. And right now, they're definitely not going the Dodger way.
Yeah, that's true. So if we look at the Dodgers and, if we take just a look at what's coming up, the standings are tight still. Well, first we'll just look at the standings before we do anything else here. So we got the Dodgers in the Western Division, a game and a half behind the Giants. As we mentioned, 5-5 in their last 10 games. But coming up, after they finish off this series with series with Colorado here, then they're going to be at Miami for 3, which we talked about. They should win those games. But then they've got Pittsburgh coming up. They got 4 against Pittsburgh. And after that, though, 4 in Atlanta, and they come back here for a 3-game set against Frisco. So, looking at that, 50 games left in the season, this is a real critical stretch they got coming up here, looking at the teams they got to play against. I mean, those are playoff teams except for Miami. We got Pittsburgh, we got Atlanta, we got Frisco, all of them with playoff aspirations.
And this is why you take advantage of the Colorado Rockies, the last place team in your division. And this is why you take care of Arizona when they come into town. Because it's a humongous stretch. It's a huge stretch. Atlanta, Dodgers historically don't play well at Turner Field. Dodgers and Pittsburgh, it's going to be tough. Pittsburgh's playing fantastic baseball right now. You're going to get them for 4 games. and then a humongous series again against the Giants. I think this division is going to come down to game 162, and the last 3 games, of course, are going to be against the San Francisco Giants. It's going to go up and down, and the Dodgers are going to trail. They might go up half a game to a game, but at the end of the day, I think in late September, the Dodgers are those 3 games against San Francisco. It's going to come down to that. But it's tough, man. There's no doubt that they're feeling it as well. I mean, they know that they're not going. They're not a neutral right now. They want to win. It's just it just I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not sure the full effort is there though. But you got to take advantage of these Rockies. I mean, there's so many series where Arizona, you lose all 3 games. I mean, if you salvage a game, it's still so much better. But so these are bad losses. You can't afford.
And you know what? That just reminds me of something. I was listening to Joe Morgan some years ago, and you can take what he says here as an analogy and apply this to the team. What you're talking about playing bad teams. He said he talked to Willie Mays about maintaining a good batting average, and what Willie Mays said, to maintain a good batting average, what you need to do is you beat the hell out of bad pitchers. That's it. Yeah, right. So that's the same thing. Right. When you got playing a bad team, a 3-game set, take all 3 games. Just beat the devil out of them, because when you play those tough teams, who knows? Maybe you're going to go 500, maybe you're going to drop all 3 or go 1-3 or something like that. But when you're playing bad teams, you have to just beat the devil out of them. That's it.
You do. You got to take advantage of them because the entire season, obviously, you're not going to play bad teams. So when you do, you need to take advantage of them when you play them. It's that simple. And it's very easy for a player to kind of take a back seat when a bad team does come to town or you're going up there. Because, you come in and you're like, maybe I can rest. We're going to have a full stretch coming on. We're going to Miami. We're going to Pittsburgh. We're going to Atlanta. I'm going to be tired probably at the middle of that Pittsburgh series. Colorado's coming to town. Somebody will pick me up. I don't really have to play that hard. Yeah. And, that sometimes does kick in. That mentality does kick in to a major league player because he is human. It's not a video game. So, that's what sometimes that they go through. But you're right, man. He's absolutely right. You beat the crap out of your opponent at any time you can, especially the bad opponents.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely. So if we take a look at, and we always take a look at baseball overall going here on Dodger Dogs. So when we look at the teams, though, we had talked about the teams that were surprises, and you say Pittsburgh still playing some pretty good ball. The Oakland A's, every now and then it looks like it's one of their years to stick out and try to be competitive a little bit. The Reds leading the division. All good. The Baltimore Orioles still up there.
Yeah.
The Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles. With a run differential of minus 54.
No kidding. Is that right?
Minus 54. Yes. They've won 4 in a row now, and they sit at 59 and 51. Just 4.5 games behind the Yanks.
Wow. Good for them.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Minus 54. I'm not sure I've ever seen a number like that when you're 4.5 games back in the Yankees.
Yeah.
The Oakland A's, that's a fantastic story, man. They got a nice lineup. They got very good pitching, very underrated pitching. The kid from Cuba, I think, Cespedes, that kid is fantastic. He's built like a tank, hits the ball a ton. Always nice to see the Angels getting beat, especially against the Oakland A's. So, they're sticking tough in that AL West. Talk about the Angels, man. I mean, they are stacked. They are so stacked, both offensively and pitching. But that bullpen is merely, probably the most pathetic thing I've ever seen. It's a team that they built. I mean, it is so complete offensively. It's so complete. They can beat anybody with their bat. But at the end of the day, you're going to need pitching. You're going to have to play defense and some timely hitting. The pitching, the bullpen is god-awful. I mean, they've had blown saves, it seems like every night, at least 4 times a week, they have a blown save.
Right.
And, my goodness, it's unfortunate for them because, that team is so talented, and they're going to be so good for so long. They can bolster up that bullpen in the offseason, and they're going to be just fine. But that starting five is incredible. I mean, you go into a playoff series, and now you got Zach Greinke, you got C.J. Wilson, you got Harden. I'm sorry, Danny Herron, and you know, who do you have throwing your bullpen in a 7-game series? You know, now you have options of throwing your bullpen with your two guys in the back end of your rotation there. So, of course, Jared Weaver too, obviously. So, they've got a nice thing there. I think once they get into a playoff series, though, then they can put their 4 and 5 starter in the bullpen to bolster their bullpen a little bit. But offensively, man, that team is fun to watch. Trumbo and Mike Trout and a whole bunch of other guys, man. They are stacked. They've done a tremendous job. And a lot of this, Charles, is that the Angels now know that they're going to get some competition from the Dodgers because of the new ownership. So they have to go get Albert Pujols. They have to go get C.J. Wilson. They have to trade for Zach Greinke because now they have competition in L.A., their neighbor, with the Dodgers that they didn't have for the last 10 years, 12 years, that they never had to worry about because they're always competing against the Dodgers. They want to be, you know, Los Angeles. They want to be that prime team out here in Southern California. So now they know they've got competition. They have to go out and spend and sometimes obviously overspend like they did with Albert Pujols.
Yeah, exactly. But you talk about the lineup and, you know, but just, you know, and to me, the Angels, you know, one of those teams that it's just fun to watch no matter what happens. And Mike Trout, I've watched him play a little bit, and I don't know. I think that guy isn't human. That's a Cyberdyne Systems Model 101 out there running around, I think, man.
I know, man. It's ugly. I mean, he's got now 29 home runs. He hit one today.
Yeah.
He's just a man. I mean, Mike Trout is another one who robbed another home run that went literally over the fence. Half of his body was over the fence when he robbed the home run the other night. I mean, this guy, you know, these are guys that are guaranteed to be in Angel uniform for the next 4 seasons. I mean, the money that these guys are going to get when they're free agent, unrestricted free agents, it's going to be stupid money. And with TV contracts and everything else, you know, who knows what these guys are going to get. If Albert Pujols is getting $200 million, you know, these kids are better and younger than Albert Pujols is. I'd rather spend it on these guys than Albert. So, you know, it's going to be ugly.
There you go. All right, well, you know what? We're just about down to the end, and I know you've got your social calendar is jammed right now, so you got to take off here pretty soon. But any final words for everybody out there, Dodger fans? I know you're constantly talking the Dodger fans off the ledge, and I do appreciate that. You know, some of your public service announcements there, where you do infuse a little bit of hope. So, stretch coming up here, and any final words here for all the fans of Dodger Dogs?
Yeah, jump. Do it.
All right. I guess hey, that was just reverse psychology, everybody. Reverse psychology.
Like every week that we've been doing this show, I've been, you know, really positive and, you know, trying to talk you off the ledge and all this stuff. But, you know, like you said, I'm gonna work the reverse psychology, and hopefully that starts tonight against the minor league team in the Colorado Rockies, and hopefully they can beat their brains and get going and get on the road and start winning some games because. My goodness, they have to. You know, you're in the first week of August now. You got, what do you got, 45 games left, 50 games left?
Exactly.
It's a stretch now. It is time to go. It's time to get going. Quick little story, a very cool story. Shane Victorino, a guy who does a lot of things off the field and a guy who is a true leader. It's a guy that you like a lot, who brings a lot of good things to that clubhouse. He was in it was a 1 o'clock game, and he got in the clubhouse around 9:45, 9:50. James Loney walks in, who James Loney is a lot of people know out there I can't stand. I hate everything about James Loney. But he walks in, and it's 10:43 a.m. He walks into the clubhouse, and Shane looks at his wrist, points to his watch, and says, "You so-and-so better get your asses in here a little bit earlier, or we're going to have a problem."
I like it.
Hello, you know. Yeah, that's the stuff that this Dodger clubhouse needs. You know, some, you know, you better make sure that you're on your high horse when you're around Shane Victorino and you're doing the right things. So,
you know what? Let me just
stuff.
say, well, that's one of those things, and we talked about earlier about, you know, is there a guy who needs to take over like that? And I think it's a little tough with with someone like Victorino, when you're traded for, and then all of a sudden you go to what is a pretty darn good team, and you look around and you realize that you may actually be the best leader in the clubhouse. So you got these guys who have been there, who know the system, know every nook and cranny of the stadium and everything, and have almost clicks and stuff like that. And here you are, the new guy, look and walk around and say, wait, you mean I'm in charge? Seriously, that's what happens with guys like that. And that happened when 1988, with Kirk Gibson, when he got to the Dodgers. And that was the thing, when he came in, and it wasn't about what he was necessarily doing as far as bat-wise, but what he put into the clubhouse. It was just he brought that no-nonsense attitude, and that really kind of turned things around. And, Kirk Gibson was a great part of that. We all know about the home run that he hit in the World Series. But he was the one who got there and turned a bunch of guys who were just kind of nonchalant into a team that just started believing they could actually win a championship.
Yep. That's true. It's very true. And you bring up a point that I really didn't think about this year, and I usually do. I mean, leaders are so big, and you can spot a leader right away. And Victorino knows, a leader knows if there isn't a leader in a clubhouse. A leader knows if he should lead. A leader knows when to lead. A leader knows a lot of different things. And very observative are leaders. They understand a lot of things. And it's true. How I look at this Dodger club is it's one big unit of leaders, if that makes any sense. It's not one guy who's going to stand up and say, let's go, let's get things going. It's a bunch of guys trying to get together. And that necessarily doesn't really work.
Right.
I'm not really a fan of that. I need a guy or two who are going to go and just let these guys know what's up.
Well, if you look at a different sport, that's the problem they have with the San Jose Sharks in hockey.
Yeah.
They got a bunch of guys who are might be halfway decent leaders, and they're doing the leadership by committee thing, and it's not working. That could be the problem with the Dodgers, but we'll have to see how.
Yeah.
And I think over these next 10 games, we'll see as Victorino really gets settled in, gets comfortable with his surroundings, and also as he starts to bond with Mattingly a little bit, we'll see how this starts to turn around, or not.
Right. We'll see, man. It's interesting times right now. The big key is once you get to September, you got to be there. You can't be 4 or 5 games out. You got to be up a game or down a game or 2 games at the most. You got to be in striking distance, and that's the big key. Is the next, like you said, 10 days, even the next 20 days, this whole month. I mean, you should have been taking advantage of the schedule, and you haven't so far. But the big stretch is coming. Usually they play a little bit better on the road. You get some camaraderie on the road. You go out to dinner. You feel good. You get to learn your teammates. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Definitely, but I'm just looking for just the change in attitude, and that's what we're looking for one thing. So you know what? It's about time to get out of here. We've gone almost 30 minutes. I know you've got some things to do. So tell you what, Mike, thanks for joining me this week, and we'll do this thing again next Wednesday night.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
All right, fantastic, everybody. So remember, you can follow him at MikedUpRadio.com on Twitter. Also, MikedUpRadio.com is the website. You can follow me on Twitter at The Inside Sports, and at Inside Sports, we're changing the world one sport at a time. This week, the sport was baseball. It was all about Dodger Dogs, and we'll see everybody next week. Thanks for joining us. This has been an Inside Sports production.